Title: The War for the Private Road. 911. What's your emergency? Yes. There's a trespasser on HOA property blocking the road. He refuses to leave. Send someone immediately. Ma'am, can you describe the suspect? It's a man in a work truck. He's parked like he owns the place. Understood. Officers are on their way. I leaned against my truck, arms crossed, watching as Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, paced furiously by the roadside. She clutched her phone like it was a weapon, barking demands at the dispatcher as they worked for her personally. The funniest part? I wasn't even on HOA property. Not even close. The road she was screaming about? It was mine. Not rented. Not shared. Owned. Karen just didn't know it yet. A few weeks ago, when I moved in, I had no idea that the local HOA was run like a dictatorship. I had deliberately bought my secluded dream property just outside HOA jurisdiction, far enough away from their endless list of ridiculous rules. My private road connected directly to the main highway, bypassing the entire neighborhood. It was perfect. Peace, privacy, and zero HOA interference. Or so I thought. The first time I met Karen was during my first week moving in. She strutted up my driveway like she was inspecting a crime scene, clipboard in hand, ready to issue violations to a house she had no control over. I had just stepped out of my truck when she blocked my path. "You can't park here," she snapped, glaring at my driveway. I arched an eyebrow. "I can't park in my own driveway?" She clicked her pen against the clipboard, clearly annoyed that I wasn't immediately bowing to her authority. "Driveways must adhere to HOA aesthetic guidelines. Trucks like yours should be parked in a garage, out of sight." I chuckled. "Yeah, well, good news, I'm not in the HOA." Her face contorted into the expression of someone who had just bitten into a lemon. "Excuse me." I gestured toward the clearly marked property lines on my deed. "My land isn't part of your HOA. Never has been. Never will be." Karen's eyes flicked to the boundary line, then back to me. Her jaw tightened. She scoffed, flipping her clipboard shut. "Well, if you're using the HOA roads, you're still subject to our regulations." I laughed outright at that. "Yeah, about that, this road? Not an HOA road." She blinked. "What? I designed it. Paved it. Paid for it. It's on my deed." For a solid 3 seconds, she said nothing, just processed. Then, like clockwork, the gears in her head jammed, and she went into full denial mode. "That's impossible. This road connects to HOA territory. It must be community property." I shrugged. "Check the county records." I pulled out a certified copy of my deed from my truck. "I legally own this stretch of road. It's private access to my property." She stood there fuming as if reality was personally attacking her. Then, she stormed off, muttering about reviewing legal options and taking this to the board. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, she has tried everything **. Fake HOA violation letters. Bogus road signs claiming the road was private HOA property. Traffic cones blocking my driveway. Each time, I calmly removed them and sent her a certified letter reminding her that she had zero authority over me. Apparently, that wasn't enough, because now, here we were, with her escalating to 911 over a road she had no control over. The distant wail of sirens echoed through the trees. Karen stood tall, arms crossed, a smug expression creeping onto her face. She turned to me, lips curling into a sickly sweet grin. "You're in for it now," she sneered. "Let's see you explain this to the police." I shrugged. "Oh, I cannot wait." 2 patrol cars rolled up. Officers stepped out, hands on their belts, taking in the scene. One of them, an older cop with a clipboard, sighed like he had dealt with Karen before. "All right, what's going on here?" Karen immediately launched into a tirade. "This man is blocking an official HOA road. He's trespassing and refuses to leave. I demand you issue a citation and have him removed." The officer glanced at me. "Sir, can I see some ID?" I handed it over, along with a printed copy of my property deed. "Actually, officer, this road belongs to me. It's legally part of my property and was never under HOA jurisdiction." Karen's smugness vanished in an instant. No, that can't be right. This is community access." The officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, let me review this." He read through the deed, then glanced at Karen with a tired expression. "Ma'am, this road isn't HOA property. Karen blinked rapidly. What? That's a mistake. The second officer, who had been silent until now, let out a low whistle. Wait a second. I recognize this name. He turned to me. You're the chief engineer who designed this road, aren't you? I smiled. Yep. Karen's face turned an impressive shade of red. No, he's lying. He can't be. The first officer sighed. Ma'am, you called 911 over a man using his own road. This is not a police matter. But he's blocking community access. The second officer turned to me. Sir, are you blocking any public roads? I gestured to the completely empty street behind me. Nope, just parked on my property. The officer turned back to Karen. Ma'am, you just filed a false police report. Her eyes went wide. Wait, I didn't. I thought it. The officer continued. Filing false claims is a serious offense. If you persist, we may have to issue a citation. Karen looked like her entire world was collapsing. And this was just the beginning. Karen didn't take losing well. After the police left, she stood there, trembling with barely contained rage, glaring at me like I had personally destroyed her world. And, in a way, I had. But instead of backing down, she did what Karen does best, she doubled down. The next morning, I found new signs planted along my road. Private HOA road, no trespassing. I blinked. Then I laughed. She really thought she could claim my property with cheap plastic signs from the local hardware store? I calmly ripped them out and tossed them onto the curb in front of her house. That should have been the end of it. But Karen? Oh no, she was just getting started. 2 days later, I received an official-looking letter in the mail. Stamped in bold red ink were the words, Cease and desist, trespassing on HOA property. I almost choked on my coffee. The letter, filled with legal jargon that barely made sense, demanded that I vacate the HOA-owned roadway immediately or face legal action. At the bottom was a signature. Karen Delacroix, HOA president. I shook my head, grabbed my phone, and called my lawyer, Frank Reynolds, a no-nonsense bulldog of a man who had zero patience for idiots. Frank, you're gonna love this one. I forwarded him the letter. 30 minutes later, he called back, barely able to contain his laughter. Oh, this is good. She's impersonating an attorney. You want to press charges now, or let her dig a deeper hole first? I grinned. Let's give her some rope. See what she does next. Because Karen? She was far from done. One morning, I woke up to find a metal gate installed across my private road, complete with a keypad lock and a smug little sign that read, HOA members only. Violators will be prosecuted. I stood there for a long minute, just processing. Karen had now moved from annoying to downright illegal. I snapped a few photos, sent them to Frank, and got in my truck. 5 minutes later, I had a tow truck on the way. By noon, the gate was ripped out of the ground and hauled off. I made sure to drop it off on Karen's front lawn. She came screeching out of her house, arms flailing. You can't do that. I leaned against my truck. Pretty sure I can. It was on my property. Just like this road. Just like that sign you illegally posted. Her face turned beet red. I'll have you arrested. I pulled out my phone. Go ahead. Call the cops. I'd love to see their faces when I show them the property deed, the fake legal notice you sent me, and the gate you illegally installed. Karen's mouth opened, then shut. For once, she had nothing to say. But I knew this wasn't over. Karen wasn't one to admit defeat. While Karen was busy plotting her next move, word got out about her antics. Other homeowners, real HOA members, started asking questions. Wait, we never approved a road takeover. Did Karen even ask us? Is she using our HOA dues to pay for this nonsense? She installed a gate? On someone else's land. As the HOA board, Karen's personal army of yes-men, tried to calm the outrage, something even bigger surfaced. Financial records. Turns out, Karen had been using HOA fees for some questionable expenses. Landscaping enhancements, that never happened. Community engagement trips that were actually weekend spa retreats. Legal fees for harassing non-HOA members like me. The moment that leaked, it was game over. At the next HOA meeting, an angry mob of homeowners showed up, demanding answers. I didn't even have to go. By the time it was over, Karen was voted out as HOA president. She lost everything. And the cherry on top? The HOA was hit with a full financial audit. 2 weeks later, a moving truck appeared in Karen's driveway. Turns out, When the county got wind of her illegal actions, they started investigating other violations on her property. Long story short, fines. Lots of fines. More than she could afford. She had to sell her house to cover the debt. The day she left, I watched from my porch as she loaded the last of her things into her car. Our eyes met. She knew she had lost. I tipped my hat. Drive safe, Karen. Her jaw clenched. She stomped into her car and sped off. And just like that, the neighborhood was finally at peace. Without Karen, the neighborhood relaxed. The new HOA president? A reasonable guy. The homeowners? Finally happy. And my road? Still mine. One evening, my neighbor Joe walked over, shaking his head at my driveway. So, after all that, you keeping the road private? I smirked. Oh, absolutely. But I made a little addition. He frowned. What addition? I gestured to the brand new sign at the entrance of my private road. It read, Karen Memorial Road, private property. Trespassers will be laughed at. Joe stared at it, then burst out laughing. Man, you're a legend. I shrugged, just making sure she's never forgotten. We clinked our beers together as the sun set over my road. And for the first time in a long time, the neighborhood was exactly how I wanted it. Peaceful, quiet, and 100% HOA free.